Well, 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 welcome back. There's a book behind me, and I have wanted for years before I ever had the idea of actually doing a podcast. For years ago, I have wanted to read this story. I have read it to my students before. It actually has a student's teardrop because she was absent when I read it to the kids. And the following day, we had some free time. I'm like, just, it won't take you very long. You can read it right now. And she legit just started crying. And one of the drops just bloop went onto the page and made little ripples and just kind of evaporated in there. So it's an interesting collection of emotions, but I've always wanted to read it because it was one of the first stories that I read as a child that suddenly made me realize I was leaving a sense of innocence and childhood behind. So I was definitely, I don't know how old I was, and clearly aware of moving from, oh, what a cute, fun story to, wait, the I don't know how I feel about this. Well, I do, but I don't know what to do with it. It's sad. Like it's I guess in its perfect sense, it's quote bittersweet, but it's sad. There's something off or wrong about it. I remember reading it initially and having that feeling, but not being able to articulate it. And upon, you know, a period of time later, months, years, I don't know, but reading it later, still as a kid though, I was like, "No, this is messed up." So, I I wanted to read it and on the podcast, and I Googled it, and apparently it is illegal if I do so, copyright infringement or whatever. So, I thought at least I can talk about it. And in the paraphrase, I think most of you out there will have read it. In the paraphrase, you'll definitely get the gist because it's not very complicated. And then I'd like to talk about it. So it is none other than The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. And what always tripped me out was, I mean, like the cover is really cute, right? The little boy and the tree is here and they're interacting and the tree is kind of appears that he's dropping an apple to the boy. But then you flip it over. This is the author. Like that dude freaked me out. I just like close up, black and white, just bald, all that facial hair, little kid. I'm like, ah, very intense guy. And his stories and his poetry are really intense, kind of cloaked in childhood, but they are definitely coming of age pieces of literature. So, The Giving Tree begins by introducing the tree, and it says that she loved a little boy very much, and the branches are kind of beckoning, calling the boy forward, and a little boy is running towards the tree. And it talks about how he would just play games with the tree. He would gather leaves, he would put the leaves together into a crown and play king for the day or king of the forest. Um, he would climb and swing from her branches and eat apples. Uh, they played other games like hide and go seek, and it was a very like playful, affectionate interaction between the two. And then eventually, when the boy um, got tired, he would take naps in her shade. And few pages on, it just expresses how the boy loved the tree very much, and the tree was happy. The story then shifts, and I guess a while ago he had carved a little heart into the tree that said ME plus T. So me plus tree, if you didn't catch that one. And as it shifts, it shows the boy is now an adolescent, and he's still hanging out with the tree, but there's no reference to games or activities or fun. And the heart, where it used to be lower in the trunk, has now is a little higher, implying the tree has also, aged. And it says as the boy got older, there's a picture of just his feet. He's on the other side of the trunk. Just his feet are shown, and there's another pair of feet, presumably his girlfriend. And there's another heart above the ME plus T. There's another heart, ME plus some other initials. And in other pages, the it just has those two hearts on the tree, and the tree has her branches kind of crossed um, down at her side, at her trunk, and it expresses that the was often lonely, right? Often sad and lonely. Another shift then occurs, and the the boy who turned to adolescent, who is now a man, young man, returns back to the tree, and he's looking up at the tree, and he says, or when he approaches, the tree is so excited. I just love the description, right? She trembles with excitement and joy, and she says, "Come play and climb up my trunk and swing from my branches." And he's like, "Nah, I'm too old. you know." I was like, when I was a kid, I used to do that kind of silliness, that folly, right? I'm too old for that. He says, "I need some money. Do you have any money?" And the tree's like, "I don't have any money, right? I don't need any money." And she says, "But I've got these apples, and I can give you the apples, and you could sell them, and then you could make some money, and then you'll be happy." So he gathers all her apples, and off he goes to the market to sell them, make money, and presumably be happy. Another shift, right? And each of these shifts is just time has passed. Now the man is kind of heavy, bit overweight. He's balding, and he goes to the tree, and the tree again is so excited, and she shakes with joy and happiness, and she's like, come play. And he's like, no, I'm too busy to do those kind of games. Um, I want a wife. I want a family. I want children, and so I need a house. And the tree says, "Well, the forest is my house, but you know what? You can take my branches and my wood, and then you can cut it up and use it as the lumber to build a house, and then you'll be happy. And so he does. He takes all of her branches and off he goes to build a house and be happy. And this is where it gets really uncomfortable, like really awkward. Um, you see the trunk, and it's just bare. There's no more branches hanging down, no more apples from, hanging amidst all the leaves. Granted, the pictures are just black and white. It's just black pen on white page. But you can see the red of the apples, the green of the leaves, the just that rich brown of the bark of the trunk, right? And um, despite such simplicity, and so midway through, maybe three quarters of the way through now, it's just on one page, it's just the bare trunk, and you see the two hearts, me plus I think it's YL, and below that me plus tree or T. And it on the adjacent page it says, "And the tree was happy." And that's that's what I mean. It gets awkward. Like, wait, the tree is given. Okay, so apples, that's fine. They're gonna grow back. Branches, like that's a lot, right? And she is just so barren, so literally alone on the page that it doesn't vibe. It doesn't align. And that is where the f the first time I read it, I was kind of like, "Okay, that's weird." But the second time when I opened it up and read it, it really spoke to me about this concept of, the title, "The Giving Tree." Okay, so she's that is her purpose, right? Is to give, and by giving, that makes people happy, and their happiness fulfills her. So I was starting to grasp that idea, but it seemed out of balance. It seemed unfair. So the following page, another transition, and the old man, I mean, now quite old, um, he returns, and the tree is trembling and excited, and she's sad a little because she's like, I'd ask you to come swing in my branches, but I don't have any more. Climb my trunk, hang out. And he's like, nah, I'm too old for that. I can't climb your trunk. I can barely walk here. And he says, you know, I need a boat. I need a boat to sail away. And if I could do that, I'd be happy. And so she says, "Hey, my trunk would be perfect. You could make a boat out of my trunk and sail away, and then you'll be happy." And so he does. And here it says, "And the tree was happy, ellipsis, dot, 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 but not really." And the picture is just the stump. And the only heart that, because it's so low on the stump, is the heart with the me plus T. And it says after a long time, the boy came back. So I mean, at this point, the old man, he's hunched over, he's gaunt and thin, wrinkly in his face, glasses. And she says, I'm sorry, I've got nothing. I no longer have apples. And he's like, yeah, I don't even have teeth. I can't eat apples. She's like, I don't have branches, to swing on. He's like, "Psh, I don't have strength to do that nonsense. She says, I don't have a trunk to climb on. He's like, "Psh, again, I barely got here with my own two legs. He says, I'm just really tired. I'm really tired. And she says, I'm really sorry. I have nothing left to give you. And he says, I don't need very much now. Um, I'm just tired and really just need a place to rest and sit down. So she straightens herself up and she says, well, an old stump is a good stump, it is a good place to sit on and relax and rest. So come boy, and she always calls him boy. Come sit down. And so the boy did. And the tree was happy. Every time it gets me. Every time. So now, as I look back on this with my own shifts, I think the story it's kind of sneaky because you're one of two people, right? You're the taker or you're the giver. And we can look at the boy turn adolescent, turn man, young man to older man to old man. And he was just selfish, right? All he did was take, and he just was concerned only with his selfish desires. And what's sad about the boy, is that when the boy started growing up, that is, because as a boy he was innocent and loved friendship and mutual um, giving of time and energy, and everybody was happy and beautiful, right? But as he got older, clearly swept up in the belief of things supplanting or replacing joy, uh, you know, happiness, in internal contentment, fulfillment, be that a house to have a family, be that um, money, be that a boat to just get the hell away, go somewhere. That's sad because basically he ended up alone. He was always alone, except for when he was the boy. And yet, I think strangely, as he comes back, and he basically the only words that he ever says are, I need dot dot dot, I want, in order to be happy. So he's searching. He's looking for a way to be happy, right, outside of him. And the sad thing is, it was the only thing outside that made him happy was the tree. Everything else clearly was just momentary, you know, happiness, and but fleeting, right, and then gone. Um, and yet he returns each time he returns, and while he returns and takes, personally, I'm like, rooting the tree on to build build a barrier, get him, shoo him away. Don't give anymore. But the last page, he's such a just decrepit old man, um, and he just sits there, and it's like they're back together, um, both basically so broken down, so so similar in their end form, but so different how they arrived there. One who took, and the other who gave, both believing that that would fulfill them, right? So we have the two extremes. Um, so he's the taker, right? Trying to fulfill his needs, that selfishness replacing happiness. And she's the giver, right? The giving tree, always ready and willing to oblige, to help, to provide in the name of somebody else's happiness. And I would say that made her happy, right? Because it says the text, you can say whatever you want about a story as long as you can back it up. And the story says, and she was happy, except for that one moment, that one page where, she's like, okay, cut my trunk off and you can make a boat and sail away and be happy. And so he does. And it says, but the tree basically wasn't, you know, she wasn't happy anymore. And I think, oops, too late. Like you, you, you gave too much of yourself away. And for what? Ironically, right? Wanting to hold on to the boy, wanting to preserve that those memories of play and innocence and mutual giving and taking and the just the pleasure of each other's company. I think it can be argued she realizes, oh crap, like I think I went too far with this giving thing. But her nature is such that being nothing but just an old stump, right? She does straighten herself up and says, an old stump is a good stump for resting. Come, 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 come sit down and rest. And he does, right? And then it's just the end, presuming, it's no longer stated and they were happy. I think you could make a note about that because everything else, right? He says, if I just had this, I'd be happy. And so she gives that to him and says, okay, off you go and be happy. And by the way, he never says thank you. He never says thank you. But at the end, I think, and this, there's no more text. So it's, you can make whatever conjecture you want, right? The text isn't going to support or reject that reading at that point. But they both just seem so sad and lonely at that point. I mean, that's why it gets me every time. It's like, it's that reminder, I think, because especially as a kid, I always thought if I could be the provider, if I could bring joy or laughter. I was often kind of the kid who would make jokes, joke around, silly. If I could bring that energy, then right, everybody would be happy. But it didn't stop there because happy, yes, but then they would like me. And so I was putting on this persona to appeal in order to be accepted instead of just being whoever and however and take me or leave me, here I am. I don't know. I was going to say it's probably quite normal, right? That kids want to please others. They want to please the parents. They want to please others to be ingratiated, to be accepted, to be loved, to be brought into the circle, and to be befriended, right? Such as later the tree with the adolescent and adult and old man. So I think it definitely triggers that because I think that was sad, sad that I believed in that narrative that that would be sufficient to um, forge a friendship. It doesn't work that way. that's why when I would read it, it's like, wait, what is this about, this story that just is not, and they were happy, right? And so when I was old enough, I was like, Jesus, I that's me, the tree. And the warning, right? That's me, the adolescent, just wanting, 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 asking for things and not providing, not doing the things to be able to provide myself with what I wanted or needed. And clearly being also, I think, confused with things, that temporary gain of happiness to replace kind of this longer term fulfillment. So I've always wanted to share that, and I hope I did the story justice. It's a great story. I think it should be on anybody's shelf. In fact, that whole row up there, and I have another stack, shelf full of children's books. I love children's books because they, in such a simplistic way, capture the human experience in such a profound way that as a child you just see, boy and tree, and then he gets old and sits on her trunk. Okay. But as you definitely get older and understand yourself more and how the world works, and how you work or want to work in that world, right? It obviously takes on much heavier implications and much more meaningful insights to your who you want to be, as well as who others are, and then to make the necessary adjustments to protect yourself, to present yourself, to find your place in society. So good. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to talk about, but I knew that this was one of the things that I'd love to be able to share in all its honesty and insight for what it's worth, as it makes sense to me, and I hope it resonated with you. So until the next time, take care.